The first trait of a pleasing personality always is a positive mental attitude, because nobody wants to be around the person who's negative. And no matter what other traits you may have, if you don't have a positive mental attitude, at least when you're in the presence of people, you're not going to be considered to have a pleasing personality. And the next one is on flexibility, the ability to unbend and adjust yourself to the varying circumstances of life without going down under them. You know, there are a lot of people in this world who are so stuck in their habits and in their mental attitude that they cannot adjust to anything that's unpleasant or anything that they don't agree with. Do you know why Franklin D. Roosevelt was one of the best? Because he adjusted himself to their mental attitude, and he didn't get mad at the same time. The elephant has learned to be flexible enough not to get mad when the other fella is mad, because there are so many things in this life that you have to adjust yourself to temporarily if you're going to have peace of mind and good health. It might as well start now. Learn to do it. If you're not flexible, you can become flexible. Number 3, on the pleasing tone of voice, a lot of people have harsh tones. They talk does not have personal magnetism. They do not know how to give a pleasing tone to his voice, and he'll never get his audience in a million years if you try. You've got to learn to, if you're going to teach, if you're going to lecture, if you're going into public speaking, or even in good conversation. If you can't do that now, you can do it with a little bit of practice, oftentimes by simply lowering your voice, not talking too loudly. I don't think that anybody can teach another person how to make each tone of voice pleasing. I think you have to do that yourself. You have to do it by experimenting, but first of all, before you do it, you have to feel pleased. How could you use a pleasant tone of voice when you felt angry, for instance? You can, but it's not too effective unless you really feel inside of you the way you're expressing yourself. All those are things. They're carefully studied techniques that you have to acquire. I don't know of anything that will pay off better than to be pleasing in the eyes of other people. It's just one of those things that you can't get along without. You know, a lot of people don't understand the full meaning of tolerance. That means an open mind on all subjects toward all people at all times. You'd be surprised at how few people there are in this world with open minds. Have a playlist into pleasing mental attitudes. You got to have an open mind, because the very minute people find that you have prejudices that involve them, any of these things that affect them, they're going to back away from you. Do you have any idea why it is that I can have all of the religious followers of all religions in my classes and get along well with all of them? To me, they're my fellow beings, or my brothers and sisters. I think of anybody in terms of what he believes politically or religiously or economically. If you have a closed mind, you'll find that you'll miss out on a lot of information, a lot of facts that you need. That means you've ceased to grow. A keen sense of humor, if you don't have it, you have to cultivate it so that you can adjust yourself to all of these unpleasant things. One of the finest tonics that you can take is to have a good laugh, at least several times a day. If you don't have anything to laugh at, look at yourself in the glass. You'll always get a laugh out of that. Surprised you out of your mind right while you're doing it. If you've got troubles, they'll melt away, and they won't seem near as big when you're laughing as when you're crying. Next, the frankness of manner and speech. Discriminate control of the tongue at all times based upon the habit of thinking before you speak. Now, most people don't do that. They speak first and think or regret afterward, because if you just before you utter any kind of an expression to anybody to figure out whether it's going to benefit the person that's listening or damage it, well, it's going to benefit you or damage you. Number 7, pleasing facial expression. No, it's a marvelous thing to learn to smile when you're talking to people. You'll be surprised at how much more effective what you say is when you're smiling, and then when you're frowning, or when you're looking serious. That makes a tremendous difference on the person that's listening. You don't have to be pretty, you don't have to be handsome, but a smile will decorate you and be embellishing no matter who you are, making your facial expression much more beautiful. And then a keen sense of justice, being just with another person even when it's to your disadvantage to do so. What a wonderful thing that is, and how that does endear you to other people. Do you have any idea how many people there are that are just fair and just and honest only when they know it's going to come back to them in one way or another? how quickly they'd be dishonest if it is profitable to them to do it. And then excellent sincerity of purpose. Nobody likes a person who is obviously insincere in what he says and does. Do you think a person who doesn't know anything except about one thing, and you'll find a person that becomes tiresome the moment he gets out of that sphere? Tactfulness in your speech and in your attitude toward other people. You'd be surprised how much you can do with people if you're just tactful with them. Oftentimes, instead of telling people to do things or asking them to do things, it might be very tactful and helpful if you requested them and asked them if they would mind doing things, even though you're an authority to give them an instruction. One of the most outstanding employers I ever knew, like Andrew Carnegie, he always asked his associates and his employees if they would mind doing something for him or if it would be convenient or suitable. No wonder he got along so well with people. No wonder he was so successful. And then the promptness of decisions that you've made. Render snap judgments. Number 13, faith in infinite intelligence. You would be surprised how many people there are to give lip service to this question of faith in infinite intelligence and don't do very much about it outside of lip service. They don't indulge in very outstanding acts backing up their alleged belief in infinite intelligence. I don't know how the Creator feels about it, but I believe that one act is worth 1,000,000 tons of good intentions, probably just one act. Number 14, appropriateness of words. I never saw an age when people indulged in slang statements, double talk, and all that sort of thing as now. And it may seem smart to the fellow who's doing it, but it's not smart for the fellow who's listening. Then the controlled enthusiasm. Turn on his enthusiasm at the right time, the right amount, and then turn it off at the right time is going to be considered to have a pleasing personality. And incidentally, if you're not able to exude enthusiasm when you want to, you certainly are not going to be considered a pleasing personality, because there are times when you definitely need it. Almost anything that you're doing in human relationships requires a certain amount of enthusiasm at times. And enthusiasm is one of those things you can cultivate. It's just like all these other qualities. Control enthusiasm. You're not going to win all the time in life. Nobody can do that. There are going to be times when you lose. When you lose gracefully and graciously, and then don't take it too seriously, no matter what it is. You know, during the Depression, I had 4 of my friends. I lost twice as much as they did, and I didn't jump off a building. I didn't shoot myself. I didn't poison myself. And I said to myself, well, darn it, all over again. Wherever I get a bunch of people together to listen, I'll be able to start making money. You can. How are you going to down a person with that kind of an attitude? No matter how many times he defeats, he's come right up again just like a cork. You can put him down in the water, but he could bounce up the moment. If you don't take it, you'll make it. Number 7, uncommon courtesy. What a wonderful thing it is to be courteous to the person to whom you don't have to be courteous. I've always thought that anybody that would abuse another person in public and with or without a cause had something wrong with his machinery. And then something is missing in life, then the appropriateness of personal adornment. That's important to anybody in public life. Ordinarily, the best dressed person is the one that's dressed so that if you were told to describe how he or she would dress later on, you couldn't do it. You'd say, well, I know it was. He looked nice or she looked nice. Then good showmanship. You've got to be able to be a good showman. Know when to dramatize words, when to dramatize circumstances. You know, there are certain things, if you describe them in just ordinary language and didn't dramatize them as you went along, well, you'd fall down flat. You've got to learn the art of showmanship as you go along. And it's something you can learn. Then on temperance in eating, drinking, working, playing, and thinking. Do yourself just as much damage with ease as you can with drinking liquor, just as much. I don't allow anything to take charge of me, not too much, not too little. Temperance, temperance. It's a marvelous thing. There's nothing so very bad in life, don't you know, if you don't overdo it. Then patience under all circumstances. You learn to time these things so that you get action out of other people at the time once more, when the time is more favorable. But if you don't have patience, you try to force the hand of other people, you'll get to know where you get it turned out or a knockdown when you don't want it. You require patience in order that you may time your relationships with people, and you have to have a lot of patience. You have to be able to control yourself at all times. Number 23, gracefulness and posture and carriage of the body. If I came in like this, of course, I'd be very comfortable. That's much easier, but it's finer. I mean, stand up like this, look like I can stand straight without leaning on anything. Slump around and be careless in your posture. Marchi is one who is not too particular about his own personal appearance, and so forth. It's a good idea to have gracefulness in posture and carriage of the body, then the humility of the heart. I don't know of anything as wonderful as to have true humility of the heart. I try to maintain that sense of humility in my heart, regardless of what happens to me that's unpleasant, and regardless of how sick. The more successful I become, the more human I observe this feeling of humility of the heart, recognizing that after all, whatever success I have is due entirely to the friendly, marvelous love and affection and cooperation of other people. Lastly, personal magnetism. That's an inborn trait and the only one of the traits of personality which cannot be cultivated, but it can be controlled and directed to beneficial usage. Convert that great created energy over into doing the thing that you want to do most of the time. Being, in that word transmuting, something to conjure with, something to look up in the dictionary, make sure you understand what it means. You're going to find out that when you really come down to answering these questions and giving yourself a rating that you have certain weaknesses that you didn't know you had. Let's find out about ourselves to see just where we stand, what it is that makes us tick, why people like us, why people dislike us. The development of character is the great business of life. Your ability to develop a reputation as a person of character and honor is the highest achievement of both social and business life. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "What you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear a word you say." The person you are today, your innermost character, is the sum total of all your choices and decisions in life up to this date. Each time you have chosen rightly and acted consistently with the very best that you know, you have strengthened your character and become a better person. The reverse is also true. Each time you have compromised, taken the easy way, or behaved in a manner inconsistent with what you knew to be right, you have weakened your character and softened your personality. The great virtues, there are a series of virtues or values that are usually possessed by a person of character. These are courage, compassion, generosity, temperance, persistence, and friendliness, among others. We'll talk about some of these in part 3 of this book. Coming before all these values, however, is the most important one of all when determining the depth and strength of your character. Integrity. It is your level of integrity, living in complete truth with yourself and others, that demonstrates more than anything else the quality of your character. In a way, integrity is actually the value that guarantees all the other values. When your level of integrity is higher, you're more honest with yourself and more likely to live consistently with all the other values that you admire and respect. However, it takes tremendous self-discipline to become a person of character. It takes considerable willpower to always do the right thing in every situation, and it takes both self-discipline and willpower to resist the temptation to cut corners, to take the easy way, or to act for short-term advantage. All of life is a test to see what you are really made of deep down inside. Wisdom can be developed in private through study and reflection, but character can only be developed in the give and take of daily life when you're forced to choose and decide among alternatives and temptations. The test of character. It is only when you are under pressure, when you are forced to choose one way or another, to either live consistently with a value or to compromise it, that you demonstrate your true character. Emerson also said, "Guard your integrity as a sacred thing. Nothing at last is sacred except the integrity of your own mind." You are a choosing organism. You are constantly making choices one way or the other. Every choice you make is a statement about your true values and priorities. At each moment, you choose what is more important or of higher value to you over what is less important or of lesser value. The only bulwark against temptation, the path of least resistance, and the expediency factor is character. The only way you can develop your full character is by exerting your willpower in every situation. When you're tempted to do what is easy and expedient rather than what is correct and necessary, becoming a person of character, for exercising your willpower and self-discipline to live consistently with the very best that you know, is tremendous. When you choose the higher value over the lower, the more difficult over the easy, the right over the wrong, you feel good about yourself. Your self-esteem increases. You like and respect yourself more. You have a greater sense of personal pride. In addition to feeling excellent about yourself when you behave with character, you also earn the respect and esteem of all the people around you. They will look up to you and admire you. Doors will be open for you. People will help you. You'll be paid more, promoted faster, and given even greater responsibilities. As you become a person of honor and character, opportunities will appear all around you. On the other hand, you can have all the intelligence, talent, and ability in the world, but if people do not trust you, you will never get ahead. People will not hire you, and if they do, they will de-hire you as soon as possible. Financial institutions will not lend you money because birds of a feather flock together. The only associates, never friends, you will ever have will be other people of questionable character. Furthermore, since the people you associate with have a major effect on your attitude and personality, you make or break your entire life with the quality of your character or the lack thereof. The development of character, Aristotle wrote, all advancement in society begins with the development of the character of the young. This means that advancement in your life begins with the learning and practice of values. You learn values in one or all of three ways of instruction, study, and practice. Let's look at each of these more closely. Teach your children values. One of the chief roles of parenting is to teach children values. This requires patient instruction and explaining values to them over and over again as they are growing up. Once is never enough. The value and the importance of living by that value must be explained. Parents must not only give illustrations, but also contrast the adherence to a value, especially that of telling the truth, with its opposite, that of lying or telling half-truths. Children are very susceptible to the lessons they receive from the important people in their lives as they're growing up. They accept what you say as their parent as a fact, as absolute truth. They absorb what you say like a sponge. You write your description of values on their souls, which are like wet clay, so that what you write becomes a permanent part of the way they see the world and relate to life. More than anything else, as we'll see in chapter 19, you demonstrate your values in your behavior. Your children will watch you and strive to emulate the values that you not only teach and preach, but also practice. And they are always watching. The Rockefeller family children were famous for being taught financial values at an early age. Even though their father was one of the richest men in America, the children were given tasks and chores to perform before they received their allowances. They were then instructed on how to spend their allowances, how to save, how much to give to charity, and how much to invest. As a result, they grew up to become successful businessmen and statesmen. Unlike children who had grown up in wealthy homes, who were seldom disciplined in money matters, study the values you admire. You learn values by studying them closely. The law of concentration says that whatever you dwell upon grows and increases in your life. What this means is that when you study and read stories about men and women who demonstrated the kind of values that you admire and respect, and then think about those stories and that behavior, those values sink ever deeper into your mind. Once these values are programmed into your subconscious, they create a propensity within you to behave consistently with those values when the situation requires them. For example, in military training, soldiers are continually told stories of courage, obedience, discipline, and the importance of supporting their fellow soldiers. The more they hear these stories, discuss them, and think about them, the more likely they are to behave consistently with these values when they're under the pressure of actual combat. The core value or virtue of character is truth. Whenever you tell the truth, however inconvenient it may be at the time, you feel better about yourself and you earn the respect of the people around you. One of the highest accolades you can pay another person is to say that he or she always tells the truth. Emulate the people you most admire. Much of your character is determined by the people you most admire, both living and dead. Who are they? Looking over your life and history, make a list of the people whom you most admire. And next to their names, write out the virtues or values that they most represent to you. If you could spend an afternoon with anyone living or dead, what one person would you choose? Why would you choose that person? What would you talk about during your afternoon together? What questions would you ask, and what would you want to learn? Consider this as well. Why would that person want to spend an afternoon with you? What are the virtues and values that you have developed that make you a valuable and interesting person? What makes you special? Practice the values you respect. You develop values by practicing them whenever they are called for. As the Roman Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, circumstances do not make the man. They merely reveal him to himself. When a problem occurs, people tend to react automatically based on the highest values that they have developed. Up to that moment, we develop values by repetition, by behaving consistently with a particular value over and over again until it becomes a habit and locks in so that we come to practice it automatically. Men and women with highly developed characters behave in a manner consistent with their highest values, and they do so without thought or hesitation. There's no question in their minds about whether or not they're doing the right thing. The structure of personality, the psychology of character involves the three parts of your personality: your self-ideal, your self-image, and your self-esteem. Your self-ideal is that part of your mind composed of your values, virtues, ideals, goals, aspirations, and your idea of the very best person that you could possibly be. In other words, your self-ideal is composed of those values that you most admire in others and most aspire to possess in yourself. The most important part of your self-ideal is summarized in the word clarity. Superior people are those who are absolutely clear about who they are and what they believe. They have complete clarity about the values they believe in and what they stand for. They are not confused or indecisive. They are firm and resolute when it comes to any decision in which a value is involved. On the other hand, irresolute people are fuzzy and unclear about their values. They have only a vague notion of what is right or wrong in any situation. As a result, they take the path of least resistance and act expediently. They do whatever seems to be the fastest and easiest thing to get what they want in the short term, giving little or no consideration or concern about the consequences of their acts. The evolution of character. In biology, life forms are categorized from the least to the most complex, from single-celled plankton all the way up to the increasingly complex spectrum of life to the human being. Similarly, human beings can be organized along a spectrum as well, from the least to the most developed. The lowest forms of humans are those with no values, virtues, or character. These people always act expediently and take the path of least resistance in their search for immediate gratification. At the highest levels of development of the human race, however, are those men and women of complete integrity who would never compromise their honesty or their character for anything, including the threat of financial loss, pain, or even death. George Washington is famous for his honesty, which was demonstrated in the story in which he admitted that he had cut down the cherry tree. In the same vein, the founding fathers of the United States wrote that we hereby pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. In his book, it was Trust, the social virtues and the creation of prosperity, philosopher Francis Fukuyama observed that societies worldwide can be divided into two kinds, high trust and low trust. He also argues that the highest trust societies, those in which integrity is most admired, encouraged, and respected, are also the most law-abiding, free, and prosperous. At the other end of the societal spectrum, however, are those societies characterized by tyranny, thievery, dishonesty, and corruption. Each of these is, without exception, both undemocratic and poor. Trust is the key. Trust is the lubricant of human relationships. Where there is high trust among people, economic activity flourishes, and there are opportunities for all. On the other hand, where there is a low trust, economic resources are squandered in an attempt to protect against thievery and corruption, or those resources are not available at all. In the United States, we have the Constitution and Bill of Rights. These documents lay out the rules by which Americans agree to live. They create the structure of our government and guarantee our rights, but they assume that our elected representatives will be men and women of honor committed to protecting and defending those rights. They attempt to assure that only men and women of character can thrive and prosper over the long term in our economic, political, and social system. They aim to assure that in most cases, only men and women of character can rise to high positions in society. Although our system is not perfect and people of questionable character occasionally rise to positions of prominence, it has seldom lasted for very long. The basic demand of Americans for honesty and integrity eventually leads to the exposure and censure of dishonest people. The demand for men and women of character continues unabated. Your self-image, your inner mirror, the second part of your personality, is your self-image. This is the way we see and think about ourselves, especially prior to any event of importance. People always tend to behave on the outside consistently with what they see themselves on the inside. This is often called our inner mirror into which we peer before we engage in any behavior. When you see yourself as calm, positive, truthful, and possessed of high character, you behave with greater strength and personal power. Other people respect you more, and you feel in control of yourself and the situation. What's more, whenever you actually behave in a manner that is consistent with your highest values, your self-image improves. You see and think about yourself in a better light, and you feel happier and more confident. Your behavior and outward performance then reflect this increasingly improving inner picture you have of yourself as the very best person you can possibly be. People tend to accept you at your own evaluation of yourself, at least initially. If you see and think of yourself as an excellent person who is possessed of high character, you will treat other people with courtesy, grace, and respect. In turn, they will likewise treat you as a person of honor and character. Your self-esteem. How much you like yourself, the third part of your personality, is your self-esteem. This is how you feel about yourself, your emotional core. Your self-esteem is defined as how much you like yourself, but it's more than only this. The more you see yourself as a valuable and important person, the more positive and optimistic you will be. When you truly consider yourself to be important and valuable, you will treat other people as if they are important as well. Your self-esteem is largely determined by how consistent your self-image, which shapes your personal behavior, is with your self-ideal or your vision of the very best person you can possibly be. Whenever you act consistently with who you consider an excellent person to be, your self-image improves and your self-esteem increases. You like and respect yourself more, and you feel happy about yourself and others. The more you like yourself, the more you like others, and the more they like you in return. By acting with character and in harmony with your highest values, you put your whole life, internally and externally, into an upward spiral. In every area of your life, things will get better and better for you. Your role models have a tremendous impact on shaping your character. The more you admire a person and his or her qualities, the more you strive, consciously and unconsciously, to become like that person. This is why clarity is so important. Always behave consistently. Whenever you act in a way that is consistent with your values, you feel good about yourself. Whenever you compromise your values for any reason, you feel bad about yourself. This also means that when you compromise your values, your self-confidence and self-esteem go down. You feel uneasy, inferior, inadequate, and uncomfortable. When you compromise your values, deep down inside, you feel that something is fundamentally wrong. Almost all human problems can be solved by a return to your highest values and your innermost convictions. When you look back, there have probably been situations in your life when you have compromised your values in order to save an investment, keep a job, preserve a relationship, or maintain a friendship. In each case, you have felt worse and worse until you finally broke it off and walked away. And how did you feel when you finally had the strength of character to walk away? You felt wonderful. Whenever you use your willpower and strength of character to return to the values that are most dear to you, you are rewarded with a wonderful feeling of happiness and acceleration. You feel energized and free. You wonder why you didn't make that decision a long time ago. Do the right thing. In the development of character that is based on self-discipline and willpower, long-term thinking is essential. The more you think about the long-term consequences of your behavior, the more likely it is that you will do the right thing in the short term. So when you have to make a choice or a decision, always ask the magic question, what's important here? Practice the universal maxim of Immanuel Kant, the philosopher. He said, resolve to behave as though your every act were to become a universal law for all people. One of the great questions for the development of character is this: what kind of a world would this world be if everyone in it were just like me? Whenever you sleep, whenever you do or say something that is inconsistent with your highest values, immediately get back on your horse. Say to yourself, this is not like me, and resolve that next time you'll do better. What you dwell upon grows. If you are in a situation today in which you are not living up to your highest values, Make a decision this very minute to confront the situation and straighten it out. The minute you do, you will once again feel happy and back in control. There's an old Indian story. On my shoulders are two wolves. One is a black wolf, evil, who continually tempts me to do and say the wrong things. On my other shoulder is a white wolf that continually encourages me to live up to my very best. A listener asked the old man, "Which of these wolves has the greatest power over you?" The old man replied, "The one I feed." By the law of concentration, whatever you dwell upon grows and increases in your life. When you think and talk about the virtues and values that you most admire and respect, you therefore program those values deeper and deeper into your subconscious until they begin to operate automatically in every situation. Whenever you exercise your self-discipline and willpower to live your life consistently with those values that you most aspire to be known for, you begin to move rapidly along the path to becoming an excellent person